So we are back, and now we're going to talk about. There's another window I didn't talk about last video, and it's the bottom one, and it's your timeline. This is used for animations. We'll talk about it very soon. Okay, so in this video we are going to talk about editing and the difference between object and an edited object. So there are two modes that you are going to need to know very well. The modes are here: the object mode and the edit mode. The other ones are pretty cool, but we're going to talk about them later. You don't really need to know them for our project. So in order to switch between modes, you click tab to go between object mode and edit mode. Now in object mode you can select an object as a whole. So if I were to duplicate this object, or let's add another object. Let's say add sphere. Oh, not to sphere. Add sphere. Okay. There's two types of spheres. They look better by editing the subdivision, but we'll talk about that later. So now here we go. If you look on the right side, I have my cube and I have my sphere. I can select them this way, and since I'm in object mode, when I click on the object with my right mouse click, I select the entire object which has a center, and I can move that object, I can scale that object like we've talked before. But when it comes to editing, you'd have to be in edit mode. So edit mode. In edit mode you can change the shape of your object. A good thing to know is that to always be aware of your vertices count, which is right now at the top. I have, where does it say here? Faces, and I have 12 vertices altogether. Let's see what happens when I delete this object. Okay, and here's my stat. I have 8 vertices, 6 faces, 12 triangles. A good thing to know is that Blender represents a face that is bound by 4 corners as a square, right? But when you transfer that into Unity, it will be broken down by triangles. And let's see, right now, well, that's a more advanced topic, but yeah, the most basic unit for faces is a triangle, and always keep count of how many vertices you have and triangles you have. So I am in edit mode. Edit mode allows me to act upon 3 things: vertices, edges, and faces. And I can select them this way: vertices, edges, faces. And once you know about the gizmos for moving, it's all the same. If I'm on face, I select a face and I have the move gizmo, I can move that face. I can also move it this way, right? If I'm on edge mode, I can select each edge, any edge that I want, and I can move it. Same thing with vertex. You imagine I want to select 2 vertices and move them. I did shift select, and here we go. It's kind of a weird shape. As you can see, there's like this invisible line in between. It's really weird changing. It's not seeing this line in between. I'll show you a trick later. So I can edit this cube as much as I want, and then let's say I select all of these vertices, and I scale or let's just say this face, and I scale the face. S and down. S is the shortcut for scaling. I could have also done this. Scale this way, scale on the X, scale on the up. If I use the shortcuts, then S and move scales X, Y, and Z, but then I can also do SX to scale on the S axis. I can do SZ to scale up and down. Same thing works with the move, and the shortcut for the move is G. So I can either do that, or I can do G anywhere, or GX to move that face on that axis, or GZ. You've got it pretty much. Let's say I want to get two vertices close to each other. I either select the edge and I scale the edge, S, scale it, or I can select two vertices, and this is a very good trick. Scaling between two vertices makes an edge bigger or smaller. And once I'm done with that, I go back to my object mode by clicking tab or going to object, and now I have an entire object that I can move around, duplicate, or do whatever I want with it. Let's duplicate it. Shift D. Let's move this second cube here. How many objects do I have on the scene? I have cube and cube 001. Let's call this one cube 2. Or cube left and cube right. Cube L and cube. I keep on doing F2. Cube R. Okay. Now you will see something very important to know about scaling. These two objects to scale right now is 111 on everything. This is 111 and this one is 111. So its entire scale is 1 to 1. All right, 1 to 1 to 1. But look at the difference. Look at what happens if I were to scale this to make it double. So I want it double on the X, I want it double on the Z, and I want it double on the Y, X, Y, Z, whatever. Now look at what happens if I were to do the same thing in edit mode on this guy. So same thing, I'm going to use S and 2, enter. Right? These look like they have the same size, right? Not so. Let's get back to object mode and let's see the difference. You can see now that this object cube right scale is 2 to 2 to 2, but cube left scale is still 1. It's very important to remember scaling when you move to Unity, because if both of these were to go into Unity and you'd expect them to be the same size, they won't be. One will be double the size of the other. So scaling an object is very different than scaling scaling in edit mode. It's always a good idea to keep the object scale as 1 and then do your edits in edit mode, scale it in edit mode. That way all of your objects will have the same scale when you move them to Unity, and they will be comparable to each other. Okay. Speaking of scale now, let's look at this last gizmo that I didn't tell you about. So tab to get into edit mode. If I were, let's see what these gizmos do. Alright, so this active element, median point, individual origins, 3D cursor, and bounding box. We're not going to look at this. Let's look at 3D cursor. Let's scale according to the 3D cursor. So let's put my 3D cursor somewhere here. Let's see. At the top I am here, and on the side I am here. Yeah, I'm pretty much on that edge. I'll show you a quick way later to if I were to scale these 2 points, scale according to the cursor, right here. Look at what happens when I click S. They move away close to each other and away from each other, but also close to the cursor and away from the cursor. Right. If I were to select median point, then there we go. They are being scaled according to, I did S, according to a point between the 2 points, between these 2 vertices. So if I were to also active element, it's one or the other. So scaling according to the active element, which is this guy, or let's say scaling according to this active element, this and that. The last point is the one that's active. Let's see what's happening. And then there's individual points that can be seen if I have multiple squares. Let's make multiple squares. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one face. I'm going to do Shift D to duplicate it and move it around, and Shift D again, and Shift D again. Let's take these three faces, right? If I were to scale now according to the center of the active element, it's this last element, scaling, they all get close to that point, right? Scaling according to cursor, the cursor is way over there, so scaling is gonna scale away and close the cursor. Now let's look at individual points. This is cool. Let's do this one right here. It's each individual points that is the active point. So it's a very good trick. Now note that this is still one object. Let's move. See, all of that has one center point. You see? So all of the edits you make are all pertinent to that one cube R, our right cube. What else is good to know? So let's delete these faces. Oh, when you delete, when you click the delete, it'll ask you whether you want to delete faces, edges, or vertices. It's always good to know that when you delete a vertex, if I were to delete this guy, there will no longer be any edges connected to it. So let's see, delete vertex, and see, it kind of gives me an empty box. Undo. Same thing with edge. Basically, if I were to delete this edge, I'm only going to be left with 3 faces. So delete 2 faces. Oh, actually, yeah, more. Sorry. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So yeah, deleting and scaling, and yeah. Next video, we're going to talk about adding more points. And in the video after that, I'm going to do a demo on how to make a simple house, because after that, after the next video, we'll have enough tools to actually build something. Alright, check you later.